All right, guys, let's give this another try. So, yeah, apparently we had some problems, some technical problems. So hopefully that is now sorted. I hope so. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, guys, can you please let me know? Oh, there you go. Hey, it's working. Hey, it's working. Good, good. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I'm not sure what's going on there. For some reason, it didn't want to work, but I can see your comments right now, so that's good. And yeah, please let me know if you can hear me okay, right? Is the audio okay? Is the video okay? Let's see. Can I become a VFX artist by working 24/7? Well, yes and no. Okay, it seems that the audio is good, video is good, great. So can you become a VFX artist by working 24/7? Well, the thing is, working 24/7 doesn't guarantee you anything, right? Do you need to work hard to become a VFX artist? Of course, but at the end of the day, it's all about whether you are good or not, right? It's kind of like people saying, I've been driving a car for 30 years. It doesn't mean that you're good at it, right? And you have to be good at it for you to, get recognized, get hired, and so forth. So it's definitely about the quality, right? Okay. Let's see, how to render heavy projects faster in Maya. I'm not sure whether you're using Arnold or not, but I did a very specific video on how to render much, much faster using Arnold in Maya, and it's on my channel, right? So just go into my channel, search for Arnold Render, and you will find that video, and it will save you a lot of time, okay? If that is not what you want to do, the alternative is to render out in passes. I'm not sure whether you're talking about rendering animations or stills, but if it's stills, you can do it in passes, okay? Let's see, Deadpoolish. Love that movie, by the way, or movies, I should say. Is degree important? Well, this is, of course, a question that I get all the time. Is degree important? It can be. I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing that's important is your skill and knowledge. That's what you get hired for. That's what you get paid for. Where you get that skill and knowledge isn't that relevant. Now, that said, though, if I'm hiring a 3D artist and I get, 200 applicants on a job, right? What I would probably do is look at those people that have a college degree in 3D art, because my assumption is, well, they probably know what they're doing, right? Because, hey, they graduated. So if you don't have that advantage, you need to make sure that you get noticed in another way. Now, how would you do that? For example, by inserting yourself into their community. Well, what does that mean? Let's say you are focused on a certain studio that you want to work for, and they are constantly posting stuff on social media, right? Reply to their work, give good feedback on their work, show your own work, and get noticed in a different way, right? The only thing you need to do there is make sure you get noticed, yeah? And then, of course, do the job well. Let's see here. Garvit saying, hello sir, I'm working a small studio for 3 years and I'm quite comfortable. That's why I'm confused whether to switch or not. What should I do? Well, the thing is, if you've been working there for 3 years, you need to figure out why you got into 3D in the first place, right? If you got into 3D because you want to make money and you're making money and you're satisfied with that money, then you're all set, right? Usually people tend to move on because they got this goal that they haven't achieved yet. They want a different job, a better job. They want to apply more skills. They want to learn more. They want to earn more. If any of those things apply, then that could be the case. If you're completely satisfied in every way with what you're doing, why leave, right? Excuse me. Let's see, how do I get my work recognized? Well, first of all, it should be good, right? Second, which is super important, is try to be original, okay? Now, I'll give you an example. And I always give the same example, I know, but it's a really clear one. Yeah. You probably heard of the movie The Blair Witch Project. Now, The Blair Witch Project was a super low budget movie. I think the whole movie cost something like $30,000, right? But the storyline was so good that people forgave the fact that it was a handheld camera and that they weren't really professional actors and so forth. Yeah. So in your work as a 3D artist, you might be technically the best artist in the world. But if your work is boring and it doesn't tell a story, then other people will, pass you. So try to develop your own style, try to be creative, try to come up with new concepts. If people are looking through 3D art all day long, right? If you see something that's really unique, it will catch your attention. Now, a nice little test you can do is go to ArtStation, where you see thousands of pieces of artwork, right? And just start scrolling through it. And if you see something that catches your eye, stop, look at it, and write down on a piece of paper why you stopped, okay? Because of the shape, because of the storyline, because of whatever. And then that will tell you, what you need to look at, okay? Excuse me. Let's see if I can catch up, guys. Let me go back a little bit. Okay, I need to talk faster. I can't keep up with you guys. Okay, have I ever used Blender? I have used Blender. I chose not to work with Blender anymore. Nothing wrong with Blender, but I'm definitely a Maya guy. I also work with 3ds Max and other applications, not so much with Blender. For personal reasons, I would say. I don't want to be negative about Blender, but I just prefer Maya, yeah? But you can recommend a bachelor's degree or online certificate. And do they give you an advantage over someone who is completely self-taught? Well, I kind of answered that to an extent. I'll add one thing to that, right? If you have a degree, then chances are you also have a student loan and a debt, right? It can be anything, $10,000, $20,000, 30, 40, whatever, right? Keep in mind that you have to pay this back. And if that's the case, and you are not making a lot of money in the industry, especially in the beginning, right? You might be paying back at a rate of 75 or $100 a month, which means that it will take years and years for you to pay back your student loans, okay? Now, if it's worth it, it's okay. But if you have 40K in student loans and then you go off and your first job pays $1,700 a month, it's going to take you 20 years to pay it back, right? Now, that might not be a problem, but if you see your absolute dream job, but you can't accept it because you have to make more money to pay back your loans, then you can ask yourself, is it worth it, right? So if you can get the skill level and the knowledge and your work gets noticed without having that college degree, hey, go for it, right? But just my personal opinion. How crucial is sketching skills in animation? Well, it's interesting that you specifically say animation and not 3D, right? Animation is all about, well, not all about, but for the most part, it's about observation. Sure, you need skills. You need to understand keyframing. You need to understand how to work a rig and all that. But that's a given, right? The best animators learn to observe. They sit down in a park on a bench and they look at people. How do tall people walk? How do short people walk? How do dogs walk? How do fat people walk? How do thin people walk, right? How does somebody bend over to pick something up when they're young? How do they do that when they're old? Sorry, guys. All of that is critical information for an animator. Whether you're able to sketch or not, hey, if you're sitting in the park and you can make some kind of doodle on a piece of paper that will help you to remember what you just saw, it's fine, yeah? Other than that, you don't have to be a 2D artist to become a 3D animator, right? Okay. Let's see. If I have modeled texture in the model in ZBrush and rendered also, should I need to unwrap UV in Maya of that model? Well, the thing is, In Zbrush, it's a whole different thing. If you're going to create a 2D render of your work in Zbrush, you can do that straight up in Zbrush, and there's no need for you to UV that. However, if you want to use that model in a different application, let's say in a game or in other applications where you need to import your model and import your texture separately, then yes, you have to do that. Yeah. Give me 1 second, guys. I got this. Sorry. I think the English saying is a frog in my throat or something. Let's see. Is degree important? We just talked about that. Let's see. Yeah. Will keyframe animation get replaced by motion capture animation? I don't think so. First of all, motion capture is very expensive. You need not only the gear, but you also need the supporting hardware and the space to do it and the actors to do it and all that, right? 90% of the people don't have that. And I don't see that happening short term anyway, right? So that's one reason why I don't think that will happen. 2 is if you want to keyframe something like a non-existing character, I don't know, a giraffe walking on one leg, whatever, yeah? There's no way for you to capture that in mocap because it doesn't exist unless you have a super big movie budget, right? So I'm not worried about that at all. How to improve your skills? Well, first of all, the obvious one is practice, right? Gain knowledge and gain skill every day, right? Now, there's kind of a sequence here. It starts with intelligence, okay? Now, people might say being intelligent is a talent. Well, it's not. You are intelligent or you are not, right? You get born and you have a certain amount of intelligence, right? What you do with that intelligence is a different story. So you begin with a certain level of intelligence, and then you use that intelligence to grow your knowledge. Now, knowledge isn't skill. Be aware of that. You can read a book and then you know things, but it doesn't mean you know how to do it. So it starts with intelligence. Then it starts with getting the knowledge and then transferring that knowledge into skill. The skill you get by practice. Practice, work, getting that muscle memory and getting to that, right? So you got intelligence, and then you got knowledge, and you got skill. When that skill becomes really good and you get a lot of experience, then you become effective and productive and efficient, right? That's where the value is. So that's kind of the growth path. Let me know if that makes sense, yeah? Let's see. Should I learn different tools from modeling and texturing? I would. I mean, you don't have to if you don't have access to it, but I would for sure because it's good for the skill set. Let's see. Card saying, thanks. I'm not enjoying the work I am doing, but comfortable on the work-life balance part, and my boss are good. Okay. Well, let's say it's a life choice, right? What do you want? I mean, you're going to take the risk and, drop everything and put $10 in your pocket and move to the US and try to get the job at Pixar. I mean, are you that type of person, or are you happy with the fact that you know where you work, what you need to do all day long? That's really a personal choice, yeah? Where can I find animation reference videos? Well, how about just walking outside and opening your eyes, right? Anything that you would want to animate. I mean, you can watch television, you can watch movies, you can read comics, you can look outside in the real world. There are literally millions and millions and millions of references that are completely free. Let's see, how to face rig by, I assume you mean advanced skeletons after name matcher. Okay, well, that is way, way too specific to cover in this live stream, because if I did that, then we would be having a one-on-one conversation and the rest of you guys would probably bail. So sorry about that. Can you share some of the small 3D animation studios for internships in the US? Well, that's a matter of going on Google. There are literally thousands, right? you specifically say animation studio. You're not saying that. I mean, you want to work as an animator, I assume, right? Let me know. Let's see. Is degree important? Just talked about that. Yeah. Okay. We talked about that. Let's see here. I'm on my final year of uni. Came to the realization of wanting to be a 3D model for games and animation. I'm a generalist and have very few 3D art on my portfolio. What do you think you should do? Well, I mean, you came to the realization that you wanted to be a 3D modeler for games and animation. Where does that realization come from? Why do you want to do this? What do you want to achieve? And what time frame do you want to achieve this? And what are your expectations, right? The fact that you want something doesn't mean you literally should drop everything and just go for it. You need to specifically find out what you want. You want to be a 3D modeler for games and animation. Is it games or animation? Or do you want to work in both, right? If it's games, focus on the skill set for an animator in the or a modeler in the game industry, right? And do you want to be freelance? Do you want to work for a studio? There are a million questions you need to answer before you can create a path for yourself, right? Some tips on normal baking. I really wouldn't know what to tell you about it. I mean, it's a simple process, right? You have your low poly model, you got your high poly model. Your low poly model should have a good tessellation, clean edge flow, no non-manifold geometry and all that, right? So clean. As far as baking the high to the low poly, if you get black edges and whatnot, you have the option to use an envelope. In the envelope, you can make it bigger or smaller to kind of tweak the technical aspects of it. Other than that, it's a very straightforward process. Let's see, what advice can you give to someone who finished university, didn't go into the industry due to personal reasons straight away, but are now looking to take that step? What advice can you give? Well, it kind of depends on how long ago you finish university. I mean, if you finish university at 20 and you're now 64, hey, different story. I assume that's not the case here. If you finished 2 years ago, it's fine. It doesn't really matter. Make sure that your skill set is up to date. You still are aware of the latest in Zbrush, Maya, whatever you're working with, and make sure your portfolio is up to date, right? Brush off your resume, get back into the game, and just go for it. Let's see. I decided not to get a degree. How do you get a visa for working overseas? Well, it's without degree. Okay, so I don't know what country you want to work in. If you, for example, live in Europe and you want to work in another country in Europe, it's easy. You just go, right? EU countries don't have that restriction. If I'm living in Holland and I want to live and work in Belgium or Italy or Spain or whatever, provided that COVID's not an issue, I'll just go. If you are living in, I don't know, Italy and you want to work in the US, it's a different story. And most people, for some reason, want to work in the US, yeah? So if that's the case, then there are a couple of ways. You can get a student visa, right? Which means that you can study, but you can't work, right? You can get a sponsorship visa. So you would be in contact with a company in the US, and they would kind of tell the government, okay, this guy is going to be working for us for the next year or 2 years or whatever. And during that time, we are responsible for him. So that's a sponsorship, yeah? You would have to sort that out with the company up front. And then whether you get compensation for travel and for moving and all that, usually you don't, but hey, it's possible, right? So that's one way. One way would be to marry somebody who's a citizen and already has citizenship. But again, a lot of restrictions there. So the best way is to just look up immigration laws and read all about it, right? But this is what I know of it. Dragon Studio, how am I? I'm fine. Thank you for asking. How are you? Let's see. What are the general tasks for interviewers give us, or what? Yes, or what? or what questions do they ask while taking an interview? That's very individual, and people can literally ask you anything in the world. Now, that said, I do have a tip for you. I have a 10-part video series on my channel called How to Become a Freelance 3D Artist. Now, even if you're not working freelance, it covers everything from talking to clients and whatnot, and it also covers the interview process, right? So how do you prepare? What should you talk about? How you should talk about it? What topics to avoid? All of that you can find in that video series, right? So check that out. Let's see. Is it recommended to learn Zbrush, Substance Painter, or other things to improve models? Well, the thing is, Zbrush doesn't improve your model. Substance Painter doesn't improve your model. You improve your model, right? Zbrush and Substance Painter is nothing else like a screwdriver and a hammer. If you don't know how to use it, it doesn't matter at all, right? They're simply tools. The artist makes the model, right? And the software helps you to support it. I know people that can sculpt way better in Mudbox than people that have ZBrush. Now, you could say, okay, so Mudbox is better than ZBrush? No, it isn't, but the artist is better, right? That's what matters. If you are looking to improve your chances in the industry by having different skills, that's a different thing. But having your models improve simply by using different software, that's not how that works. Do I think the new nano system from Unreal Engine be picked up by the studios and integrated into in-house game engine in the near future? It might happen, and I'm really cautious saying that. I don't necessarily think it will, though, right? So I leaning towards I don't think so. Yeah. What about to get a good level job? What if someone learned from mentorship after completing graduation by Bachelor of Arts, but has no certification of 3D field, still has nice, good skills? Okay, so that question about degree, I already covered that. But again, if you are good, right? For me, if I'm hiring somebody, that's the only thing I care about, right? Can they do the job? Are they efficient? Have they a good skill set and so forth? Yeah. Okay, so David is basically asking the same question, formal education, traditional path. Well, the thing is this, if you have the opportunity to go to college to learn 3D, and you have the money to do that, and you have the time to do that, and you don't have any other responsibilities that are stopping you from doing that, if you have all these things, hey, go for it, right? Why not? The thing is, though, if you, for whatever reason, don't, that doesn't mean that you can't work in the industry. And I said this already a couple of times. It's all about having the skill set, having the knowledge, and where you get that skill set and where you get that knowledge is up to you. If you can sit in your room for 1 year and learn everything you ever need to know, hey, good for you, right? From a practical point of view, though, if you go to college, it's more likely that you will get that knowledge because you got people around you that are sharing their knowledge with you, and that's making you better. Plus, you have people all around you, other students, and you start to build that network, okay? So there you go. It's kind of a trade-off there. Let's see, how to make perfect in 3D model. Practice. I know that's kind of a lame answer, but first of all, what's perfect? That's kind of an individual perception. And if you want to make your work better, then learn and study and learn and study and practice and practice and practice. Yeah. Do more tutorials for facial motion capture and full body motion capture. And one more, how can we make facial motion? Okay. Well, first of all, I'm not a character guy. I've never been a character guy. I never did or hardly ever did character tutorials. So this is probably not going to happen. Most likely not. But I'm sure there are channels out there that do that. Yeah. Let's see. Hey, Mike, hope you're good. Myself, 3D artist, interested to work in the US. What are the things need to focus on? Okay, well, interesting. So if you are a 3D artist and you want to work in the US, the first thing you need to, I'm trying to break this down in steps, okay? First thing you need to understand is whether you want to work in the entertainment industry, so movies and games, or whether you want to work in an alternative industry, architectural visualization, anything like that, right? So you narrow it down. Now, let's say you want to work in the movie industry. All right. So what type of work are you doing? Are you doing VFX? Are you doing animation? What role type are you doing, right? Define that. So let's say you want to work in the movie industry. Let's say you know that you want to do this and this type of job. Then you try to figure out what area would you want to work in. Do you want to work in the California area? Do you want to work on any other area? You investigate and spend time on that area. What studios are there? What type of product do they make? Are they hiring? What type of job roles are interesting for them? Then you look at, okay, how does that meet my skill set, right? Am I, suitable for that? Do I need to learn more, study more to become more suitable for that? Once all that is said and done, then you got a plan, right? When you get a plan, the next step is, how do I get into the US? Well, and that's why you need to do the homework first. You can contact the company and say, hey, do you support non-paid internships, for example? Would you support my green card if I worked for you as a fresher, whatever, that kind of thing, yeah? So do your homework, make a plan, yeah? Let's see. Could you please give some advice on rigging? How can I get better at rigging? I just started learning rigging in Maya. What are the software? Okay, and again, this question about other software. Learn the software that you're using first. The thing is, what you learn as a 3D artist is knowledge, and everybody gets so hung up on the software. Oh, I need to learn Maya. I need to learn, which is great, but these are tools, right? You already need to know in your head what you're going to do, and then you need to know how to use the software to do it, right? So when it comes to tips on rigging, my advice would be look at animals and look at people and look at how they move. The technical aspect of building a rig, that's one thing. That is fairly easy to learn, right? The problem is understand motion. How do people move? How do animals move? Where are the joints? How do they rotate? How do they hinge? That's where the real knowledge is. Yeah? Okay. Ready. Let's see, guys. I'm trying to keep up. Hi, Mike. Hey, how are you? Hi, Mike. How do I learn Maya? Like everybody else, I guess, just by spending a lot of time and practicing and trying things. What type of education qualifications for environment artists? I wouldn't say it's any other than other artists. You have obviously the basics. When it comes to education qualifications, I don't want to call it that. I would say it's more about skill and knowledge qualifications because of what I just explained. For environment artists, I would say most important is your portfolio. Your portfolio is what is your ticket, if you will. Yeah. Let's see. Is it worth learning Mudbox? Well, if you've never worked in Mudbox before and you have the opportunity, I would skip it and I would start working in Zbrush. Let's see. Studying in India. After this, I'm going to study Bachelor Animation and VFX. This degree course is good for future, and this course has more value for another country. Yeah, well, again, we talked about this several times already, yeah? How to integrate 3D CGI video with a real video in Maya. I did a tutorial on that, so look it up. I've learned a lot from your videos. Can you please add some environment render tutorials in Blender or Maya? I did a whole bunch of videos on that. Check my channel. That's so cool, thank you. Srinivas, I'm sorry I'm butchering your name, but I appreciate that. Thank you. Let's see. Do I take requests for tutorials? I do. The Viking Longship. Thing is this with tutorials. I always want people to learn something while looking at the video, right? And if you do something like a Viking longship, you're talking about a model that might take, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 hours or more. Typical video is 8 minutes, right? Now, I don't know how to model a Viking longship in 8 minutes unless I do a time lapse. So if it was a really cool design, I maybe could do like a 10-part series. But what I know from experience is people will watch the first 2 and then they'll bill. Yeah. Let's see. As an international student, obviously, it's difficult getting a job internationally as a general 3D artist. Would it be possible or easier to getting a job as a tech artist, even being new? I don't think so. I don't think it really matters. And again, watch that 10-part video series that I made about, freelance artists. It's not just about freelance. It's pretty much about anything a 3D artist should know. Yeah. It's all about the value. Why would somebody hire you? Because you bring more value to the table than the amount that they need to pay you, right? If you show up at my doorstep and say, listen, I want to do 3D work for you, and you need to pay me $10,000 a week, right? Hey, I'm totally fine with that. If you can make 10 million for me a month, great, right? What do I care that you're asking 10K a month? So the big problem is always that you have an anticipated value or a promised value or a value that you think you can bring to the table, but you have no proof, right? So you sit down with a studio and you say, hey, I'm the greatest ever. And they're like, okay, because, right? What's your reference? And if you can sit there and say, I worked on this project and that project, and I worked for DreamWorks and I worked for Pixar, then you have a reference. If you have no experience, it's super hard to say, listen, I have a certain value. And in this industry, it's important to get your foot in the door. As an intern, as an unpaid intern, I don't care. Build that network. That's critical. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Is Maya the only sufficient software to learn to get picked as a 3D animator in bigger studios? Well, no. I would say Maya is a super important one. It's not the only one. And again, it's not like you're standing outside of their building in a row between 500 other animators and they come outside and they pick you. It's not how that works, right? It is you finding a way to integrate yourself into their field of vision, into their process, into their community. That's how you stand out, right? UK said they'll hire 3,000 Indian every year to work in UK. Does this cover 3D artists also? I have no idea. I never heard of that comment. I don't know. I found that most companies have no interest in hiring anyone. Well, that's interesting because obviously hundreds of thousands of 3D artists definitely have jobs, right? So, and if you take on average that people work for a company, let's say, in an average something between 3 and 5 years, that means that every 3 to 5 years, an artist leaves a company, which creates an opening for another artist, right? So I don't know if this is your personal experience. Maybe they're hiring people, but they're not hiring you. And the question is that, why is that, right? Let's see. I use Blender, Adobe, Substance 3D. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I might be doing well. Is it recommended that being a 3D artist, I have to know texture as well? Otherwise, I won't get any job. If you know how to model and you don't know how to texture, then I would personally say your chances are pretty much zero, right? Unless you're doing a whole different thing like animator but as a modeler, you definitely need to know how to texture. I'm out as my user. I want to switch to Blender. It's so hard to switch, and sometimes I get so frustrated. Why do you want to switch to Blender? And for those of you who don't know, by the way, a lot of people switch to Blender because the student license disappeared and Maya is so expensive and all this. Keep in mind, though, that Maya has become super, super cheap compared to before, right? Right now, you can have a full year fully commercial license that you can use for your business and for all that stuff, right? For under $400 a year, right? So it used to be like $400 a month, okay? Let's see. On what social platforms a 3D animator should be to increase contact with the animation world out there? First of all, LinkedIn for your business portfolio, and then ArtStation for your regular portfolio, and then any community that you feel is professional enough, has members from the industry. So not something like animation for beginners, but more maybe where they do movie reviews, done by artists and so forth. So find artists that work professionally in the industry and ask them, on what social platforms are you, right? That's what I would do. For example, my personal Facebook group, my Hangout group, MH Tutorials Hangout group, has well over 4,000 members in it right now. And almost every one of them is working in the industry. And we have producers, we have directors, we even have actors that work for, like mocap stuff. We got special effects artists, we got writers, we got all of those, yeah? Let's see. Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon to you too. All right. How did COVID impact my job? For me, not personally, besides the fact that I actually had COVID in the beginning of 2020. And other than that, I've been working at home for many years, so I had no impact at all. Interesting. Mika Noob is saying nobody pays 10K a month. LOL. Well, I don't want to burst your bubble, but yes, they do. There are people that make 10K a month. And also, can you give some tips about freelancing on 3D modeling and 3D animation? And again, I got a 10-part series on my channel. Yeah. August, I love your video. Do you have any special unforgettable memories, experiences from your previous projects? I do, and it's so cool that you ask. So I'll try to keep the story short, but what happened was this. I was hanging out on my outdoor group, and then one of the members who was finalizing her studies on a university in Brazil, she was working on a 3D app to teach autistic children how to learn the language easier, right? And she needed like 3D visualization elements for that. So, and she had like a time frame of 48 hours to do it, and needed 250 models. So I basically mobilized 4,000 artists from all over the world and said, come on, guys, we need to help her. So 4,000 artists all over the world started working on all these models, and within 24 hours, she had all of these models done. They were all integrated into the application. She finalized her, she graduated, turned this into a real-time working app, and now she helps autistic children to learn how to speak Portuguese. So really cool. Let's go back up a little bit. Let's see. Hey, Mike, I'm from India, but I want to get in Canada or other countries as a 3D artist. Is it possible to get a job? It is possible. I talked a little bit about immigration just a little bit ago. This video will stay up, by the way. It's not going to go down for patrons. Everything on my channel is now monetization free. So no more channel members, no more patrons, not making any money off of YouTube anymore. Everything is 100% free and will stay up, okay? Let's see, what's the best investment? So as far as Canada, yeah, look back in the video and you'll see my comments, yeah? What's the best investment as a 3D artist? I want to ask if there any way to get 3ds Max license cheaper than $30 a month. Well, first of all, $30 a month is very, very cheap, right? Other ways than that, I don't think so. I mean, being a 3D artist is expensive. I mean, you need hardware, you need software. I mean, talk about the cost, for example, of a graphics card, right? I mean, if you can't afford $30 a month, I don't see how you're going to make it if you have to uphold the costs for your systems and all that, unless you get a job at a studio. Yeah. Do you have any tips for international 3D artists to get a job, knowing how recruiters consider visa processes? Well, the thing is, you shouldn't be dealing with a recruiter to begin with. And with a recruiter, I assume you mean an external recruiter hired by a company, right? Because if I hire a recruiter to find a 3D artist, they'll probably try to get one as cheap as possible. So they're going to start looking local and so forth. If you want to get hired internationally, again, insert yourself into their community, make yourself known, make yourself good and so forth, and go from there. Let's see. Blender is free and better with more support base. I heavily disagree, but that's a discussion for another day, right? Is an HR interview for a 3D modeler? What are questions asked in interview generally? Will it be related to software or questions related to our portfolio? Okay, interesting. Well, the thing is this. When you're having an interview, it's important to understand who you are talking to. And again, check that 10-part series on my channel. Yeah. When you're having that conversation, are you talking to an HR person who knows nothing about 3D, or are you talking to the head of the 3D department who knows everything about 3D? Whole different thing, right? Because the HR person will be asking you questions that are typically not about 3D specifically. They'll have really general questions. What is your experience? Who did you work for? Blah, blah, blah. The 3D person will ask more in-depth things and will try to test your knowledge by asking a solution for a complex problem. How would you transition a rig from one character to the other character? That kind of stuff, right? If you can answer questions like that, you are showing your experience and your skill set. So find out who you're talking to up front, because you got an appointment, so you know who you're going to be talking to, and prepare accordingly. And always, always, always talk about them. Don't talk about you, right? They are talking to you because of them. You need to show your value to them. Yeah? Okay. Let's see. What do I think of free resources? Well, if that is the only thing you have, then fine. Problem is, though, that typically free resources don't have the financial backing for, staying up to date and so forth. Yeah. Let's see, 10K a month. Sure, if you're the studio owner or something. No, that's not true. I know 3D artists that make 10K a month, and I know 3D artists that make more than 10K a month. It's just reality. I mean, it's rare. I mean, you were talking about the people that are way up there, but they're there. Let's see. Suggest any channel for texturing and rendering classes for 3ds Max. What's this guy's name again? Arimus. I think it's spelled like this. He's a good, solid 3D artist, and he always does everything in 3ds Max, so that's a good choice, I would say. Okay, can I please suggest this class for Unreal? I would simply start looking at Unreal tutorials. Okay, so Jeanette is saying make a mobile game 3D, and it says again and again and again and again. So please stop doing that. Otherwise, I'm going to kick you off the channel. Yeah, I hate spammers. Please suggest any channel for texturing and rendering class. Yeah, okay. I've been working with 3D for over 30 years. This industry only takes the cheapest labor and outsourcing everything for pennies. Well, I guess then you've been dealing with the wrong people. I mean, I've been in the industry for 30 years as well. And I mean, are there a lot of quote unquote bottom feeders? Of course. The thing is, if you're looking in the realm of people that need assets for their games, right? They're going to go with the cheapest possible. They're going to try and get everything for $3. That's not the industry where you want to be, right? If you look at the 3D industry as a pyramid, and you know this because, like you said, you've been in the industry 30 years, yeah? If you look at it as a pyramid, the bottom part of that pyramid is, let's call it, people that are developing their skills, and their main focus is on technical aspects. how to learn Maya, how to learn ZBrush, how to learn. If you compare it to driving a car with a stick shift, they're thinking about, okay, now I got to shift into second gear and third gear and fourth. Yeah. So they're really in the starting phases. Then just above that, you have the area where there are tens of thousands of people that pretty much know how to model something, right? So they can go on to TurboSquid, they can sell their models, make a few bucks. Great. Still not there. Then you have the artists that have been working for as a freelance or for studios for a number of years, right? And they worked on small projects, maybe a game, maybe a movie, maybe whatever. They're making okay money, nothing great, okay. Then you get towards the people that run teams because they've been in the industry for a certain amount of time. They understand the workflows, they understand the industry, they know people in the industry, right? They're starting to make a little bit more money. The people that make the biggest amount of money are basically people that they live and breathe the industry, right? I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm well known in the industry, and directors know me, and producers know me, and they know that I know this guy and that guy, and so forth and so on, right? And they'll talk to me and say, "Listen, I got this idea about creating a game where you got vintage cars racing, but the cars have to be absolutely 100% authentic, time period correct, and so forth. I need research on all of that." And the guy says, "I got the money, but that's all I got," right? And I tell him, "Listen, I know people that are specialized in cars. I know people that will create the perfect environment." So you become much more than just a 3D artist. You are like a broker. You are a facilitator. You're helping this guy to make this come true. So you take the lead on that project because of the people you know, because of the experience you have, and so forth and so on. If you're that guy, you're making a hell of a lot more than 10K a month. Trust me. Yeah. So if you're happy on sitting behind your computer and modeling and texturing tables, great, right? You're going to make $1,000 a month. There you go. Let's see. Channel texturing. Okay. Let's try and not skip anything. Mobile game. Can you please suggest the best class for Unreal? Like I said, Unreal channel. Actually, I'm looking for a job as 3D modeling, and I found one, and I know my own Blender, but they're asking 3ds Max. Pretty much similar software, which I need to study for some. Yeah. Well, the thing is, that happens all the time. People have Maya experience, and then they're asked to work in 3ds Max. And usually they will give you, a couple of days to get into it, and that's usually enough, right? Yeah, the industry constantly rips good ideas from small developers. That's true. That happens. And again, and I know I sound like a broken record here, but I made that 10-part series about freelance artists, and that basically contains 30 years of my experience, right? And it's a tough business, and you need to survive in that business, right? Nobody's going to protect you but yourself. People will promise you the world, right? Oh, I'll give you credits in the movie, and I'll give you this, and I'll give you that, and it's all blah, 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 right? You need to make sure that it actually happens. Get deals in place, get contracts in place. If people say, okay, then I don't want to work with you, then they're not the people you should work with anyway, right? So there you go. How to fundraise work in gaming industry. I assume you're talking about raising money on GoFundMe or whatever to create a game. That is not an easy process at all. It takes a lot, right? And it's too much to get into in this live stream, but it's not easy. So, Jeanette, I'm going to ignore your repetitive questions because I asked you not to do that. Let's see. When a beginner approaches companies or post work on social media, should he do it as himself, actual name and personal, or should he present himself as a company? I definitely wouldn't do that as a company. Definitely not, unless you are a company, right? it's kind of like, these people that they got this little stand on the street there, and they sell lemonade to people that pass by, and they got a business card where it says, CEO or vice president or whatever. To be honest, I think that's just stupid, right? Because people will see through that in a second. And what you're doing is you're inflating your importance. Don't do that, right? 3D industry is very down to earth in my experience, and people are kind of, true to themselves. Just be honest and say what you want and what you don't want, and don't create this image of whatever. Yeah. Why did I demonetize my channel? For a couple of reasons. Well, first of all, YouTube is going nuts, right? YouTube is, I've been a creator for 9 years, and YouTube is doing all sorts of crazy things to basically control you as a creator. If you want to monetize your channel, you have to do this, you can't do that, you have to say this, you can't say that. It's nuts, right? I started my channel 9 years ago to give back to the community, right? And I promised that my videos would always be free for the viewers. Now, I don't want YouTube to pile on more and more and more ads just for the sake of making a buck, right? So what I decided to do is I just stopped monetizing everything. And, I'll just have to work harder with my clients and make my money there. And yeah, that's basically why. So, okay. Let's see. Suggest a channel for texturing and rendering class 3D Max. I already answered that. Can you please suggest best class for Unreal? We talked about that. Sorry to be so negative, but the money and pay tend to be a joke. It would be never encourage anyone to enter this business. Well, the thing is, I understand what you're saying. I know, because I talk to young people every day that want to work in the 3D industry. If your goal is to work for Pixar or DreamWorks, it's probably never going to happen. If your goal is to make, $500,000 a year, it's probably never going to happen. Most likely, you're going to be struggling for years and trying to make a buck, and everybody wants to rip you off. And hey, all of that is true. But that said, if that doesn't scare you off and you are a true fighter and this is your absolute passion and you want to do this no matter what, hey, go for it, right? But if you're expecting an easy ride, absolutely not. It's a super, super tough gig, yeah? And I would say I'm in 3D not because I want to, but kind of like I have to. I'm so passionate about it, I wouldn't want to do anything else. So there you go. But you're not negative. I would say you're realistic. It's more likely that you're going to end up in the bottom of the barrel where you're fighting over scraps, right, than actually making a nice income. But that said, if you are serious about it and you're professional about it and you work hard, it is absolutely possible. Okay, so up to you. Let's see, if your portfolio contains original concept, would it make the portfolio stronger? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It would not make it 10% stronger. It would make it 5,000% stronger. That's exactly what I look for in a portfolio. Okay. Junet, Mia, Upkey, Fa, Dengue, Spam, something. Yeah. No idea. Please suggest any channel for texturing and rendering. Okay, we talked about that 3 times now. Make mobile game. Nope. Why are you making everything free? I just explained that. Can you please suggest the best class for Unreal? Yeah, the Unreal channel. Just cut up with the entire video by watching in twice the speed of the video. Answered all the questions I'm curious about. Having said that, I don't think you discussed how to composite 3D videos with keyed real. No, I didn't do that. Can you mention the title of your video about that? Okay, so the keyed. Oh, okay. So yeah, so you're looking. I misunderstood. I thought you talked about bringing real-time video footage into a Maya scene. But what you're saying is something different. What you're basically saying is you want to place a 3D element into a real-time scene and you want to do motion tracking. Is that correct? Let me know if that's what you mean. Yeah. Johanna Oliva, hello, how are you? Let's see, please suggest any channel for. Okay, Puneet, stop saying that, right? And mobile 3D games, okay, fine. Okay, so let's see here. We're going to. I'm going to put some people in timeout here because that's annoying. All right. Do I think that Blender could replace Maya? I don't think so. Let's see. Texturing is easy. Okay, that's not for me. What kind of aspects of fundamentals would you recommend as a beginning 3D artist and study? Okay, good question. Tumultuous Tiger, interesting name. So when it comes to 3D artists in general, right? You have the technical aspects. So let's call it hard skills. Some people call it hard skills. So what are the buttons in Zbrush, in Maya, in 3ds Max, in Blender, in whatever, right? What are the buttons? What do they do? So learn the software. Second is, okay, now that I know all of that, how can I use all of this knowledge to create something? So learn how to, create whatever. Then you basically have the skills, right? So somebody tells you model and texture table, you go out and model and texture table. Great. That's just the basis. The primary role for any 3D artist is for you to A, tell a story, or B, help tell a story. That's your job. That's what you get paid for. In the entertainment industry, in the movie industry, hey, the producer wants to tell a story, or the director wants to tell a story. Yeah. Okay, what is the story? How do you need me? What do I need to do? Now, let's say they want you to model a scooter that's going to be driving around in a little city in Italy somewhere in the 1950s and so forth. So now the real skill set comes in. Obviously, you need to know how to model a scooter, and you need to understand the software, you need to understand the pipeline and all of that. What makes you better as a 3D artist is that you have the ability to research the time, the 1930s, in Italy. What does that mean? It means that the roads are not great, so there's going to be a lot of dust on the scooter, right? The roads are very narrow, and there are a lot of cars parked everywhere, so probably scratches and dents on the scooter. So you need to really dive into the storyline to understand how you can make the model better, right? That's where the added value comes in. Okay. How do I maintain my motivation? I literally did a video like a week ago. I think it's a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And it's titled How to Not Lose It as a 3D Artist. Yeah, check that out. How long should my 3D modeling demo reel be? I would say a maximum of 3 minutes. Pick your poison with the area that's interesting. Yeah, won't be able to do everything the program can do. Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, I've been working in Maya like forever, right? And there's still a whole lot of things I don't know. Finding reason to keep alive. I assume that's your screen name, right? What do you think about Unity 3D? Hey, it's great. It's fairly easy to find tutorials on how to put 3D assets into 2D videos, but what I'm interested in is the opposite, 3D environment. Okay, so you want to put real-time footage. Okay, so basically you're filming actors on a green screen, right? And then you want to superimpose a 3D environment behind them, yeah? That's fairly easy, basically. It's done, you usually do it in After Effects or something like After Effects. There's a helicopter coming over. Wow. So what you do is you create the green screen footage with the real life stuff, right? Then you render out your environment sequence. But what you do is you take the camera information from your 3D and you translate that camera information into your After Effects settings, right? And then you can use that for your 3D scene. It's complicated. It's not something that I know a lot about, to be completely honest. I know there are people on YouTube that specialize in this. I've seen this done a couple of times, but I wouldn't be the right person to answer this question for you, unfortunately. So I know in theory how it works, but that's not something I have skills of. What should I start modeling for practice? Suggestions on selecting real-world objects. I would start by modeling anything that you find on a table in front of you. Now, that might seem a bit odd, but what people tend to do is they pick things to model that is in line with their skill set, right? So they stay in their comfort zone because they don't want to model something they don't know how to model. Problem is, you therefore don't grow as an artist. So either have somebody else tell you, model this, or randomly pick something, right? And that's the only way to grow. Okay, guys, we're in for 1 full hour. I'll go on for another few minutes, and then we'll call it a day, right? Let's see. What's the biggest risk in 3D industry? The biggest risk is not knowing where your next paycheck is coming from. As a freelance artist, obviously, you need to find your own gigs, your own clients. But even as a studio artist, nowadays, you typically get hired for the duration of a project, right? If the project gets canceled or they run out of budget or it's released and they don't start a new project or they don't need you for that project, you are suddenly, out of a job. So that's the risk. Yeah. Let's see. What is the biggest risk? Is this having advantage? I'm not sure what you mean by the last part. How much should I charge for freelance 3D modeling or design? Check my 10-part video series. I talked about this. Yeah, I'm just going to ignore that spamming stuff. Let me just get rid of that. Trying to kick this guy here. Okay. Hidden. All right. Okay, we'll do maybe 1 or 2 more questions. What specs do you think are most important in a laptop for 3D modeling and animation? Any thoughts about gaming machines? Well, I'm not a fan of laptops for 3D work because the system requirements are so heavy that it would literally make the laptop way too expensive. Now, I do have a laptop and I use it, if I have to be on location to show things, but my main system is definitely not a laptop, right? The specs that are most important depends on your workflow. Animation is different than, for example, doing straight up 3D modeling. As far as rendering is concerned, that's usually the biggest strain on your system. It depends on whether you are CPU rendering or GPU rendering, and both are available now. What is the main thing? CPU always has to be fast enough, regardless of what type of GPU you have. And then it's depending on whether you render yourself or outsource that. So it's very personal and very specific. If you are fairly new in the industry, I would say it has to be a good balance between the CPU and the GPU. Don't get a super expensive GPU with a crappy CPU. Try to get that in balance, right? Let's see. I'll pick 1 more question. Okay. Last question, guys. David Patient. Is it better to shoot for large companies like HBO or VFX and 3D related jobs, or staying in freelance or small companies? Well, the thing is, that's obviously a personal choice. I love working freelance for the reasons that I just mentioned, because more and more studios work with freelance artists on projects, right? So if you look at something like Toy Story 4, there's several freelance artists working on that, right? And that's kind of more and more the norm, I would say. Yeah. So I work freelance, and I have done so for years, and I'm my own boss, and I make my own schedule. Is it scary at times? Is it risky at times? Of course, but working for studio is the same thing, right? So yeah, I would go for a freelance, but again, that's personal, right? Okay, guys. Well, a lot of talking. Anyway, I hope the video was helpful. The video will stay up on the channel, so no worries. Thank you guys so much for spending your time. I know your time is valuable, so thank you for hanging out with me today. And yeah, that's it for me. Until we meet again. Don't know where, don't know when. Thanks, guys. Bye.